Welcome back again. So in the last video on sensory overload, I said I will be making a video on how I've learned to deal with sensory overload and including some of the sort of most frequently recommended tips that I can find online that have helped people that might have sort of different social triggers to me. So let's jump in. So the first one that I spoke about in the video in terms of a trigger for sensory overload for me was really noisy and busy environments. So pubs, bars, clubs, things like that. And it's just the overwhelm of the whole situation weighing down on me, it feels like. So this one is for if you're like in a pub, and it's worked for me so well. It kind of never fails, to be honest. It's really, really helpful. It gets me out of a lot of sticky situations where I just feel like I don't want to be there. I want to leave, go home, and just not be around anyone for a little while, just to sort of recharge my mental battery, I guess. And the tip is to dive straight in head first to a conversation and to put every bit of your attention on the other person that you can. So I just kind of give them the floor completely, and I'll be sort of actively listening to what they're saying, asking questions, obviously. But the idea for me is that I just completely take a back step and allow them to, because everyone loves talking about themselves. Like, it's just kind of what people enjoy, I guess. And so by taking that step back and allowing them to just take the floor and go with it, I can then focus entirely on them and what they're saying. I don't have to think about how I'm feeling really overwhelmed or I'm worried about what's going on around me. I can just zone in on that, and kind of counterintuitively, that makes me more aware of what's going on around me, but in a much more calm and proactive rather than reactive way. So for instance, if I am really deep in conversation with someone, really interested, I'm more likely to notice if someone's in trouble, one of my friends is in trouble or something. I think it's because I've calmed that sort of sensory overload and my brain's better able to filter through the information. And so although I am completely focused on the other person and what they're saying, subconsciously my brain knows, actually, no, this is something that we should pay attention to, and it kind of alerts me to it. My other biggest trigger for sensory overload in the last video was having confrontational conversations. When I'm in a confrontational conversation, it feels like my thoughts, emotions, feelings are taking up so much of I used this analogy in the last video, taking up so much of my brain's bandwidth that there's none left to kind of consciously listen to what the person's saying or really dive deep into what's going on at that moment. Something that I've found that helped massively, and I've used it in so many situations, and it's really not strange, it's really obvious, and it took me a while to actually notice that I was doing it, but it's just to have something in my hand. It sounds a bit odd when in the situation. So for instance, if I'm feeling really overwhelmed and it's in like a work environment, you might have even seen me in the videos, I'm always clinging onto a pen. I find that if I'm feeling anxious, nervous or anything, just having something in my hand that I can squeeze to kind of ground me in my body is so helpful. Like I say, work situations, it's usually a pen because it's a bit more acceptable. But I mean, you could always have something that you take around with you that you know you could sort of pull out and just hold on to at any time. It's really helpful. Sounds stupid, but give it a try. So my third and potentially most powerful, in my opinion, way of dealing with sensory overload is comprised of 3 smaller steps in itself. And it's a cognitive behavioral therapy style or method. So the first step in the 3-step process is to, first of all, notice when you've become overwhelmed and what environment you were in at the time. That sounds really simple, but it's so much harder than you think, because by the time you've actually noticed that you're overwhelmed, usually you're out of the situation. But if you can, and that's all right, because you can obviously write down what the situation was, but just becoming more aware of what sort of situations actually trigger this feeling of overload in you, I've found has been really helpful, because it's then let me work on step 2. So I'll get to step 2 now. And that is to write down all the thoughts that are in your head, no matter how stupid they are. So yeah, like I was saying, if you can catch yourself at that moment where you are feeling overwhelmed and write down the sorts of thoughts, or put them into a dictaphone, speak them into a dictaphone, however you want to do it, that's really good if you can do it at the time. It's like the best I've found. But even if you do it an hour, 2 hours the next day, obviously the emotion has settled down and you might not be able to pick up exactly the sort of really jarring thoughts, but it's better than nothing, and it gives you an idea of your sort of pattern of thought and what direction your thoughts are going down. So yeah, make sure you write down all of your negative thoughts and the environment. And the third step in this process is to use what's called a cognitive restructuring sheet. And what you use that for is to evaluate the validity and how helpful or accurate the thoughts that you had at that time, or yesterday or the day before, whenever you had the situation. How valid and accurate were those thoughts that you were having about that situation? This has actually been quite surprising for me as to how well this method works. There's been certain times where I've written down a situation and an environment where I felt really overwhelmed, scribble down all the automatic thoughts, the negative thoughts, and I've used the cognitive restructuring sheet, which basically I'll attach one below, which is from David Byrne's book Feeling Good, which is amazing, but use whatever one you want to. This is just one that I think is really good. And the idea is that you replace your negative thoughts with something much more reasonable, and it puts the lie to the initial automatic thought that you had. Yeah, I found that when I've used this technique, the next time I'm in the situation that has caused me to feel really overwhelmed and overloaded, I'm significantly less anxious, nervous, worried, and panicky about how I'm going to react, how I'm going to put myself forward. So I can hugely, massively, definitely, absolutely, 100% recommend it. And his book is brilliant. So one last honourable mention for a tip on how to deal with sensory overload that's really popular online. It's not one that personally I have used, but it seems to be the one that a lot of people have gone to and have had really good results with, and that's to keep a diary. And it is similar to what we've just gone through in terms of the kind of CBT technique, but in their diary, all the people that I could find online were writing down was the symptoms, the triggers, and the environment that they were in when they experienced it. And just by, so not even doing the sort of analysis of it with the CBT technique, just by writing those down and gaining a bit more awareness of the sorts of situations, people, and thoughts that they were having at the time, it gave them a massive sense of relief, because they were just so much more aware of where their shortfalls, I guess, were. Not shortfalls, but where they struggle. Anyway, that's it for today's video. Thank you all for watching. I've noticed how often I say on these videos, and it's driving me a little bit insane. I nearly did it then. But yeah, anyway, that's it. I'll see you in the next one. Ciao. Pen in hand.